Ready-made maths YouTube training videos. Teaching assistant and teacher training in mental mathematics. This is the final day of our 10-day look at mental mathematics strategies, games, ideas, resources and images, all the way through Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. This is part 2 of day 10, addition number games for Key Stage 2. What we're going to be looking at in this session are 3 really cool Key Stage 2 dice games. Our first primarily Key Stage 2 game is a game called 205. Really nice one to play. Just gets children holding numbers in their head and doing a little bit of kind of mental adjustment as they play the game. The game 205, quite straightforward. The basic version, the teacher rolls just 2 initially 6-digit dice and 1 to 6 dice and calls out the digits. Let's just imagine from this example the digits that were rolled were a 6 and a 2. That means the children can make the number 62 or they can make the number 26. Whichever one it is, they record the answer on the recording sheet. What they've then got to do is keep a running total by rolling 4 more sets of numbers. So imagine, at the moment, let's just imagine they went for 62, and then we rolled a 3 and a 1. They could do 62 add 31, which will be 93, or they could be 62 add 13, which will be 75. You'd keep that running total, move on to the third roll. The aim is to try and get as close to 205 at the end of 5 rolls. It doesn't matter if they go over 205, if they go under 205. If they score bang on 205, they score 0, because 0, the lowest score is better. They score nothing for scoring bang on 205. If it's to score 200 or 210, they'll score 5 points. If they score less than 190 or greater than 220, then they've gone really far out and they're going to score 50 points for that. So we certainly don't want that. The lowest scores count. You play for 5 games, and at the end of the 5 games, whoever's got the most points is the overall winner. So again, you start that with a class, and then you develop it to let the children have a go. The other alternative is to play exactly the same game. This time, play against an opponent. You roll the dice. You just play against the person next to you. Each time the dice are rolled, you choose. Each of you individually chooses where you want to place the numbers. And again, at the end, you compare the 2 numbers. You can still score the difference from 205, and you can play a few times. After 5 games, the player with the lowest score is the winner. The strategies to think about really are: what is the average score that you should be totaling after each roll? And then, what if you change the dice to 10-sided dice? How does that affect the game? Is it easier or is it harder? So here's an example of a 205 game board. On the first roll, we've rolled the digits 4 and 1, which gives us the option of 41 or 14. This player here chose 41. On roll number 2, it was a 5 and a 2, or a 2 and a 5. Again, you can choose 25, which would have given us 66, or you can choose 52. The player here chose 52. We've now got a cumulative total of 50 and 40 is 90, and 2 and 1 is 3, partitioning at 93. Roll 3 gave us a 6 and a 4. Options are 64, which will actually get quite close to the target, or 46. So to play safe, we've gone for the 46. Looking at the answers over here, what was the strategy for 46? Well, 93 and 46, I would probably either have passed 7 over or just done a partition, 130 and 9. That gets us to 139. At this point, we definitely don't want low numbers because we're going to be too far away. Now, we've then rolled a 5 and a 1, so this time we didn't want to go for 15 just in case we end up too low, and rolled a 1 and a 2 next time. We actually rolled a 5 and a 1, so we made that one to 51. That now got a nice little number bond. 139 add 1 is 140, add 50 is 190. Again, that leaves us quite a nice lot of options from there for the final roll. As it turns out, it was a 2 and a 5. 52 would have sent us way over, but 2 and a 5, 25. That means that we end up on 215. It is a really nice little game. Again, the key to it is trying to keep as close as possible, interestingly enough, to multiples of 41. If you divide 205 by the 5 rolls, then you end up with 41. If you could manage to roll 41 on each roll, then you would exactly get 205. So it's keeping as close to that number as possible. But overall, it's just a really good game for just mental arithmetic skills. Once the children become confident, just change the number, and they've got to think about it in a completely different way. Or again, use other dice that you might want to use to develop the activity. As with all the games today, though, what I always like to do at the end of a game is to actually ask the children, could you have done it any better? This is actually, in a way, more beneficial than the game itself. The game itself is quite random as it's playing. You've no idea what number is going to come up next. Sometimes you end up really far out, from the 205 target. If you then replay the game but actually let the children see the numbers beforehand, the question then is, could we have rearranged them in a different way as they came on and got closer than 10 away? Let's have a look. Well, that's one alternate way of doing it. We've kept the 41 the same as we did last time, but as you can see, we've swapped the 52 for 25, the 46 for 64, the 51 for 15, and the 25 for 52. We've swapped all of those numbers over, and this time we end up with a total of 197. So now we're getting even closer to the right answer. A third possible roll. This is a really good one. Obviously, we're aiming for 205. What we've done this time is rather than go for 41, we've started off this time with 14. This is a real gamble. This is a choosing low numbers to begin with. We've chosen 14, and then we've chosen 25, which means after two rolls, we're only on 39. And the average score we need is 41, so we need some big rolls. Luckily, what then came was 64, which got us to 103. 64 and add 40 to 1. 51, and again add 103 and 51, get 154, and finally 52. You got that, you end up with 206, which means you only score 1 point for being one away. Really, really good game. That's why I like that idea of finishing it and asking the children to play with those numbers and see if they could have improved it. It works really well on their mental arithmetic reasoning skills. You saw addition and subtraction facts in Key Stage 1 in the previous video in part 1, where we looked at how we can use our small numbers, our numbers up to 10, to create some reasoning challenges for addition and a little bit of subtraction as well. This is the Key Stage 2 version, which goes all the way up to 100 plus 100, and then allows you to create your own versions that go even further. So what we're going to do now is have a look at part 2 and look how the addition and subtraction facts Excel resource develops in Key Stage 2. Tab, which is down here, which is number facts to 100 plus 100. Even just as a basic addition activity, this worked really, really well. There's 23, there's 61, what's my strategy? I would partition, 60 and 20 is 80, 3 and 1 is 4. I've got the number 47 and the number 27, what's my strategy? Again, I would probably partition that one as well, 60 and 14, but I could potentially round and adjust, add 30 and subtract 3. Different options for that one, but 60 and 14, 74. Let's try the third pair of numbers. 2, oops, wrong way around that way. Anyway, 2 and a 20, which I'll just do a count on to do 22. And finally, I've got 18 and 76. That's where I would definitely do a round and adjust. Add 20 is 96, subtract 2 is 94, or manipulate the calculation. I'm going to pass 2 over and make it 74. Add 20. So just as a basic addition activity, that one works really well. Alternatively, let's reset it and let's do it the other way around. The total is 58. That number is 29. What's this number? Now, if you do know your doubles really well, you would actually know that is double 29, but that's quite a complicated one. If we're not sure, we're thinking, well, what number do I add to 29 to get to 58? Well, I'm just going to imagine now it's 59. 29 add 30 is 59, so it must be one less. It's 29. Another option, I'll click that one, is 84, and that one is 85. Very easy. That one must be 1. This number is 63, and this number is 57. That's just a straightforward add 3, which makes that one 6. This number is 79, and this number is 48. And again, a very simple partition. 40 and 30 is 70. 8 and 1 is 9, so it must be 31. So that one actually was quite an easy version. It just depends really on what numbers you get. That one's a little bit more complicated. The total is 146, because these numbers can be any numbers from 1 to 100, as can these numbers up here. That gives us 146. So again, what could that be? Up there. Resetting it, I could just stick a number in the middle, 57, and just say to the children, right, find me 4 possible ways that, 4 possible ways to get a total of 57. What could those numbers be? Work with a partner, discuss what could that be, what could that be. Again, we can extend it out and give them 4 options and play that game again as to what could those numbers be. up there. What's the range? But we'll leave that one for the time being. We'll just reset it. And what I'll do now is I'll show you the version that I generally tend to do as a nice little mental starter in class. Something like we did before. And I set something like that up. And then it's just that challenge, work with a partner. How quickly can you fill in every single number on that grid? I'm going to leave that as a little challenge for yourselves as well. I think it'd be a really good idea now. Get yourself a pencil and paper, a whiteboard and pen or something. Basically, draw that little grid out. Put the numbers in that are in. Start your timer, and then using all those strategies that we've been developing over the past few weeks, can we work out all of the numbers that are missing from that grid? So I will pause the video now. Let's see how we do with that. Okay, now let's look at where would I start? It's quite a tricky one actually, because they are quite challenging numbers that we've got here. I would be tempted to use my number bonds that we've been doing all week for something like this one here. Here's 45 and here's 118. Well, I'll just find my number bond to 100 first. My number bond to 100 is 45 and 55 using that 9-10 pattern we looked at yesterday. So I've got to add 55 to get myself to 100 and then another 18. I'll definitely be jotting this down. I'd be jotting down 55 add 18. So 55 add 20 is 75. Subtract 2 is 73. One way of doing it. If you want another way, just count on. 5 and 3 is 8. 4 and 7 is 11. Again, that will give you 73. There's 11 tens here and there's 8 ones. I think this one, again, you've got different options. This one does have an exchange in the ones as well, so it's not quite as easy. I will be tempted to use my number bonds to 100 again. 68 add 30, 2 is 100, and then another 52. So it's 52 and 32. 52 and 32, 84. This one's a bit easier. This is just, you've got 4 and 6 is 10, 2 and 5 is 7, so 10 tens are 100, and 5, and obviously 7 ones are 7. So you'll end up with 65 for that one. And again, this one's not so bad. I could actually do this one as a subtraction. 91 subtract 20. 91 subtract 20 is 71. Add 1 back on, 72. And that will give me that total. From this point, it's now all about wrapper code a number. What am I going to do to find all these totals? Well, this is brilliant because I've got 19 here. So for each of those, add 20, take 1. 104, take 1. 103. 65, subtract 1. 64. 62, subtract 1. 61. That was a nice easy one. What have I also got as an addition strategy? Well, I've got 65 plus 45. That's a straightforward number bond. 110. Any others that are easy? Yeah, this one here. Double, near double, double 70, and then 3 and 2. So that's 145. Again, any others that look, any others that look relatively easy? These are all a little bit tricky. Oh no, I've got a nice one there. 72 and 68. Number bond. Again, if I pass that 2 over there, I end up with 70. Add 72. 142. Oh, 70. Sorry. I end up with 70. 70. Pass the 2 over. I end up with double 70. 140. Silly mistake there. This one again, relatively easy. 60 and 40 is 100. 8 and 5 is 13. The others are a little bit trickier, and they're just practicing those skills we've been doing all week. There's another number bond here. That's 110. We've got double and adjust for 70 and 80. 150 plus 7. We've got probably a partition there. 80 and 60 is 140. And 5 and 40 is 9. And again, finally, another double and adjust. Double 60 is 120. And 10 is 130. 5 and 2 is 7. Now, last one, which is this one here. What's the strategy you'd do for that? Again, the ones are nice and easy. It's 3 plus 2. And the tens are actually fairly easy. 7 plus 4. I've got 11 tens and 5 ones. So I end up with 115. It wasn't an easy one to do, but if we apply all those strategies we've been learning for the last 2 weeks, you can get this grid filled in. It's a lovely mental starter and really allows your children to think. We're now moving into probably my 2 favourite games. I'm going to show you this game on PowerPoint, but I'm also then going to show you a competitive version of this game that I'm going to play in the Reddy Maths classroom. This is a game called Make 1,000. Again, it can be also Make 100 and done with 2-digit numbers, and lots of the games can be done like that. This is the 3-digit version, which is predominantly aimed at around about year 4. Really simple. I'll just show you the grids rather than read the instructions. This is the standard Make 1000 grid. All you do, really simply, is you roll a dice, a 10-sided dice, 6 times. After each roll, the children work together and decide where they're going to place the digit that's rolled. They've just got to make a general decision as to where they think the best place is to put the digits. Let's just give you an example. Let's imagine you roll a 6, then an 8, and then a 5 as your first 3 rolls. Well, this player has decided with the 6 just to play safe and put it in the middle where it's worth 60. Then they've rolled an 8. They probably didn't want to go too high, too early, just in case. It's only high numbers that appear next, so they've gone again in the middle with the 8. That gives us at the moment, before the third roll, 140. The third roll was a 5, and that's quite a nice one to have in the hundreds because it's it's the middle number. So we've now got currently 640. What we're really hoping for now is a 4, or at the very least a 3, which will be able to encourage the number to go higher. So we rolled the 7. These are actual real rolls that I did. We rolled the 7, then we rolled the 3, then we rolled the 4. On the roll of the 7, we just put it out of the way in the ones. Then the 3 came up, brilliant. We got it straight over there in the hundreds. And finally, the only roll left was the 4, and that got us 4 ones. We ended up with 951. 800 plus 140 plus 11, which meant we're only 49 away. As we just played with 205, the following question is, could the numbers be rearranged so they're close to 1,000? And as before, they definitely could. I've used that little 9, 9, 10 pattern we looked at yesterday. 900s, 9 10s. We didn't manage to get 10 ones, but we got quite close. We got 15 ones. And that takes us into a total of 1,005, which is only a 5 away. The Make 1000 extended version is where children work together. Again, I'm not going to read the entire thing out. They work together now, as they did on the previous one, but they're working on 2 grids. So they get grid A and grid B. This allows them a throwaway grid if they need it. So if there's any digits that they don't like, they can throw them away onto grid B. A lot of children try to build up both grids together and then, see which numbers appear, and at the end, see which of the grids is closest to 1,000. But again, it's a nice collaboration game. Just imagining there, our first 4 rolls were 8, 4, 9, and 6. Again, not making grid A too large too early. Put the 8 in the 10s, put the 4 in the hundreds, the 6, which again might have been a good hundreds number over here, put in the ones, and the 9 we should put over here, just to kind of get it out of the way as a ones number. Let's have a look at the second set of rolls. A 7, a 4, an 8, and a 2. Again, where would we put those? Well, we put the 7 and the 10s over here. We wanted to kind of get it out of the way because it wouldn't really have helped us. It would have sent us well over on there. It would have been too high in the 10s as well. So it made more sense just to get it out of the way. Then we had a 4. Now, I could have added the 4 to the hundreds over here to get 800 and then gone for some big 10s. But again, I thought I'll just hope for the best and get rid of the 4. And finally, we ended up with the 2, which we just put into the 10s over here. It might be at this point where I ask the children, what would be a good number? What digits are you waiting for? What are your totals from both your numbers so far? They're actually quite close. The total of this side is 487. The total of this side is 506. So not too bad. The final 4 rolls, we rolled the 6, which obviously we could have put in the 10s, in the hundreds over here to make 1,000, but that would have eventually sent us over. So we put the 6 in the ones. Then I actually rolled a 5, which is very lucky. So that went in here. The 1 went in the ones over here, because we've already gone over 1,000, so I want to keep this as low as possible. And finally, the 9 became the last digit to go in place. Added together, that gives us a total of 1,007, and that should be 1,177. I've typed in the wrong digit there. I shall just alter that one, make sure that's in the right place. So we shall just alter that one slightly. There we go, better. 1,177 are our 2 totals. So we've only ended up 7 away from that example. The final version of Make 1000, I'm now going to show you in the ready-made classroom, where we're going to actually have a play at the competitive version.
The final game that we're going to play together today is a Key Stage 2 game now called Make 1000. I'm normally in this at around about year 4, following all the work we've done on number bonds and the actual strategies that we've used previously. As the title suggests, the aim of the game is to make 1000. Now there's 3 ways to play the game. I've described the other 2 ways on the PowerPoint earlier. This is the competitive version of Make 1000. The game is fairly straightforward. I'm just going to roll a 10-sided dice, a 0 to 9 dice. I'm going to roll it 12 times in total. I'm going to roll 6 rolls for myself and 6 rolls for my opponent. The aim of the game is quite simple. You've got to put the digits that are rolled into the columns so that the total is as close as possible to 1000. Doesn't matter if you go over or go under, as long as it's quite close to 1000. Now, what we talked about yesterday was trying to get that 9, 9, 10 pattern. So you kind of want those 2 to add to 9, those 2 to add to 9, and these 2 to add to 10 to get as close as possible to that. But here comes the little crux of the game. In the previous ones that I've explained to you, the children work together. They work as a pair, and they work on 1 grid and then 2 grids and try and actually work together and collaborate. What I'm now doing is competing against Lydia. So from the first roll, which is actually a 0, it's a great roll, I've got 2 options. I can either put the 0 into one of my columns, either the hundreds, the tens or the ones, or I can actually put it in my opponent's. So the aim of the game is to try and get myself as close to 1000 while trying to get my opponent away from 1000. So I could put the 0 there if I wanted to, which is actually worth nothing in the ones, or I might decide to put it in my opponent's hundreds. That means unless they roll a 9 now, they're going to be quite a long way away from 1000. So I won't use that as my first roll now. That's just one of the options that we could do. We're going to now play the game. So Lydia, you're trying to get as close to 1000 as possible. So am I. We'll use a different colour for you to put yours in, so you can see. There we go. So do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
You go second. You're okay. So my first roll. Let's see what we get. I've got an 8. Okay, my first roll is an 8. Now I could be quite cruel to Lydia and put it in her hundreds, or I could keep it for myself. I think just to keep the game going a little bit, I'm going to give the 8 to Lydia, but I'm going to put it into the 10s. I'm not going to be too cruel. Okay, you're going to go, Lydia. A 0.
A 0.
Oh, what are you going to do in 0?
I'm going to put it into your hundreds.
Well, thank you very much. So Lydia's now put the 0 into my hundreds, which means I'm potentially going to get a really low score. Thanks very much,
Hopefully
dear.
you don't get 9.
Let's have a see. My next roll is a 0.
Oh no!
Well, there we go. With some revenge, I'll put my 0 over there. Your go. Right. Right, let's see where we are. A 5.
5.
5. That's quite a nice one. Where would you like to put the 5? Keep it yourself or?
Here, because then I can have the 10s together.
Okay, right.
And then it could equal another 100.
Okay, yeah, that's good. We've got, so that's 130 so far. So Lydia's currently worth 130 and I'm currently worth 0. I've now rolled a 9. What an excellent roll. I think I shall put my 9.
Oh, I need a 9.
Okay.
Actually, or maybe an 8.
An 8. Well then, let's just see. But not a 2. Not a 2. Okay, what are you going to do with the 2? A 2. I'll put it in my 10s, okay? Yeah, it's okay, not so bad. So I've got 920 and you've still got 130. Now, let's have a see what my next roll is. It's a 7. Now, I was hoping for a really low roll that I could put there on Lydia's. I've got a 7, but I'm actually quite liking that. I'm going to put my 7 there.
No.
I'm loving my score so far. Okay. Here we go. You need a big roll.
7.
7, oh, that's good, that's good. No, so, are you going to hold on for a bigger one than that, or?
Well, yeah, let's hold on.
Let's go. You've got to put yourself somewhere. You're going to gamble on getting a bigger one next time, or? Yeah, so put it there. So she still thinks she might get an 8 or a 9. Let's have a see. My next roll is a 3. Now I could be really horrible and send Lydia so far under.
No.
I won't do that because I'm actually doing quite well, so I'm going to put my 3 up there and give you a chance to get a good score.
Oh,
there you go.
thank you.
You still got a chance to get a good roll. 4 is not particularly helpful. And tell it to you what you do with your 4. You can obviously wouldn't put it in your hundreds. So I'm going to go for it in the 1s. So you really are gambling on getting a bigger roll next time. Let's have a look. I'm going to roll. I've rolled a 0. I could be the horriblest dad in the world. Give you. Go on then.
No.
There we go. That's really good. You've got your final roll, Lydia. Let's see what you end up with.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. We've got a 1. Okay. So let's have a look. Let's do a little bit of calculation here. I've got 923 and 71. Well, 9 hundreds, 9 tens, and 4 ones. I've got a total of 994, which is 6 away from 1,000. Go on. Okay. And Lydia's got a total of 141 because I was extremely cruel. So you've ended up 859 away from 1,000.
Can it be like whoever's the least close to 1,000?
Not in this game. So that's the Make 1,000 game. It's really competitive. It's a great one to play. And again, as a three-player game, it also works well. The more you play it, the more strategic you'll get. And then we can change it from Make 1,000 to make 800 or make 1,200 or whatever whatever target you want it to be. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
The final game I want to show you is one of my favourites. It's called Decisive Dice Digits. You've seen the game board on the PowerPoint earlier. Now we're going to just have a look at how the game progresses. We've got hundreds, tens and ones. Again, we might as well just keep the target total at 1,000. But it's very different to Make 1,000. This time, we've got a choice every single go of going into the hundreds, the tens or the ones. So we're not doing an addition as such. We're constantly moving forward one of the different place value columns. So when I roll my first roll, and I've rolled an 8, I've got an option of 8 in the hundreds, 8 in the tens, or 8 in the ones. If I decide to put the 8 in the tens, that gives me a running total of 80. So 8 tens makes 80. Obviously what I'm trying to do is get as close as possible to 1,000 after 5 turns. I've now rolled a 2. Now I'm certainly, I think the 2 is probably better as a ones number maybe. So I'm going to put the 2 over there and hope for a bigger roll. That gives me a running total of 82. Now this is obviously done in discussion between children normally. They work as a pair on this one. I've now rolled another 2. So when I roll again, it's got a different number. I rolled a 7. Brilliant. I've rolled a 7. If I put my 7 into the hundreds, I've now got a total of 782. So what I'm hoping for now is a nice low number in the hundreds or a couple of big numbers in the tens, and that should get me as close as possible to 1,000. So my next roll is a 1. Now, again, I've got 2 options now. I'll put the 1 here. That's going to be 882, and a big number could send me close. Or I could put it into the ones or into the tens and just hope for a slightly bigger number next time. I'm going to go for that option there. I'll put it in the tens, and then I've got 792. I can still see 700s, 9 tens, and 2 ones. My final roll is another 1. So I played very badly there, so I need to put the 1 over here, and I end up with 892. Now what we could do is actually specify that all the rolls have to be different, so you get 5 different numbers, or with this game just see what rolls come up and develop it. Now what I would then say to the children is, could I have played better? Could I have put the numbers differently? And actually with those particular numbers, I could have been very, very close to 1,000. If I, for example, put my 8 here in the hundreds, put my 7 here in the tens, you can see straight away the difference. If I have swapped round the 2 and the 1, so I put my should go here on there, so put the 2 there and my 1 there, then what we can see happening here is, look at the total, that will be 800, I'll then have 820, I'll then have 890, 891, and finally 991. So I could have got much, much closer and have rearranged them in different ways. Other people like to try and get as close as possible, and we're actually 9 away there. Other people like to get as close as possible to 1,000 quite quickly. So rearranging those numbers again, just imagine I'd played the first 2 rolls directly into the thousands, and then I was to put the 7, the 1, and the 1 all in the ones and leave the tens completely. Again, we'd have had a completely different score. I'll just rub these out. So let's see what happened there. We would have had 800, we'd have been at 1,000 straight away, 1,007, 1,008, and 1,009, and I'd still be 9 away. So each time you play, have a little play with the numbers, and at the end of the game, could you have rearranged them and got closer to 1,000? I've now created an extension version of the Decisive Dice Digits game board. There are 2 ways we can extend this. There's more than 2, but there's 2 main ways we can extend this particular game. One of them might be to go into decimal Decisive Dice Digits. The alternative is to actually have more turns and to involve negative numbers. So it's playing the kind of 3-digit version, but further up the school. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll the dice. Let's say, for example, at this point on number 5, my running total is just gone over 1,000. Imagine I'm on 1,028 at this point. And then I roll a 3. I can actually put my 3 there. That is a negative. And I'm going to minus 30, which therefore will get me to 998. So it does give a little bit more scope to go forwards and then backwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the board now. I'm going to roll the dice 7 times. And we are allowed to include negative numbers in there as well. So my first roll is a 5. Now a 5, I can make it 500, 50 or 5. I think I will just go into the hundreds to begin with and give myself a running total of 500. I think it'd be quite good to go over and then go backwards. I've now rolled a 7. Now this is an option now. Do I make it 570 or do I add it to the hundreds? Well, for the fun, I'll add it to the hundreds, which now gets me to 1,200. Now in a normal game, I'd already be 200 over the total because I'm aiming for 1,000, but now I can play around with the numbers a bit. So my next roll is a 4. I've rolled a 4. Now again, I could put that in minus 400s, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the tens and I'm going to put minus 4 tens. If I subtract 40 from my total, I'm on 1,160. So I can use, both examples there. My next roll is another 4. Again, I'm probably going to go for the same idea, put another 4 there. I'm now on 1,120. The idea of being able to put things in the tens means I can get closer and closer to the 1,000. My next roll is a 9. Now again, 9 is now looking really positive because if I put a 9 into here, as you can see, I've got 1,120. I'm now removing 9 tens from that, or 90. I'm now already on 1,030, so I'm getting closer and closer. You can see from where I started, 1,200, I've now done 9, 13. I've taken off 17 tens from 1,200, so I'm now at 1,030. The next roll is an 8. Now at this point, I don't want to subtract hundreds or tens. I want to subtract ones. Oops. At that point, bend back up. If I subtract my ones, I've now subtracted 8 ones. I'm now on 1,022. Let's see what my final roll is. My final roll is a 7. Again, if I subtract 7 tens, I'm going to be on 952. So I'm going to subtract 7 ones from there, and that gets me to 1,015. So I've ended up 15 away. The rolls were quite unfortunate towards the end. I was hoping for something a little bit smaller around here, like a 2 or a 3 that will get me really, really close to 1,000, and then I could have played around in the ones. Unfortunately, the last 3 rolls were all large numbers. But again, as we've done with all the other activities, what we could say to the children then is, right, imagine these were your rolls, move them around, keep them in that order, but move them around. Could you have done an alternate version and get really close to 1,000? So if I leave that with you as homework, you're going to pause the video now, have a look at that, play around and just see, send me the best answers you can get. Can you get exactly 1,000 or as close as possible? I'd love to see some of the options that you could send through to me.
You've just had a look at the game Decisive Dice Digits, an absolutely superb game. I'm just going to show you a couple of other variations of it. Here are the rules. I won't read them to you, just in case you didn't see them on the screen earlier, to just give you the chance in your own time to read through them. There's quite a few variations there and some alternatives at the bottom. Decisive Dice Digits for Key Stage 1 is about making it as close as possible to 100. So here's a filled-in grid where there were 4 tens, which made 40, then 9 ones, which made 49, back to the tens, 2 tens, which gets you to 69, another 7 is 76. And that final option then, we're at 76. If we added 4 to the ones, we'd be at 80, which would be 20 away. If we add them to the tens, we're at 116, which is 16 away. So just about closer that way. But if you remember what we said before, the main aim of this game is, well, what could you have done to improve it? Could you have moved them around and got much closer? Keep them in the same order of the numbers, but could you have swapped the tens and the ones? And interestingly, just by moving this 2, that's the only movement we need to do, then the whole thing changes. Basically, it all changes by about 18. So we end up with 49 and 2 is 51 and 7 is 58. This time when we add the 40, we end up with a total of 98. Completely different, but only 2 away from our target total of 100. A lower key stage 2 version like the game we just saw. This is just a A random variation, we can see exactly what's happened. The 600s, the 810s, and the 71s. Yes, it's the 687. Another 410s, 727, and then the 200s. So we end up with 800s, 12 10s, so that's 920, and 7. We end up with a total of 927. Before I show you the answer, I'd now like you to look at this and see what you could do. Could you keep, obviously, the numbers in the correct order, but manipulate them around and try and get in a total at the end that is still, we're using the same numbers, but it's closer to 1,000 than 927. If you pause the video now and have a look. And here's one possible answer. Not too many changes, but this time the 600s have now become 10s. That means after 2 rolls, we're only at 68. So the 7 now goes into the hundreds, 768. The other 2 remain very similar. And we end up at the end with 1008. Could we have got closer? Not this way, but we're still very, very close. This one is pretty much putting everything in the 10s, apart from the 8. So we end up with 800, 190, which gives us a total of 990. Again, if you've managed to find a way of getting even closer than that, really fantastic to hear from you. That's just one different option. Other adaptations of Decisive Dice Digits, as we mentioned, are the negative numbers version, which we talked about before, where you can put numbers in here that include negatives, or the Decisive Decimal Dice Digits, where we're looking at ones, tenths, and hundreds, and we're aiming to get as close as possible to whatever your target number is. Let's say a target number of 10, potentially, or a target number of 6, or whatever you want the target to be. They're all really, really good games. This one involves them obviously mentally calculating in decimals as they go along. Give it a try. Very, very successful. Play at home, and then practice with the children, and give children the opportunities to reason about numbers and practice those addition strategies that we've been using all week.
Thanks so much for joining me for another week of mathematical training. As you have hopefully seen, the 10 days that we've done so far should have complemented each other. We've had 7 days of developing mental calculation strategies. We've had a day of tips and tricks. We've had a day of looking at number bonds and ways to learn number bonds. And today has just been about fun number games. What we should hopefully have now is a repertoire of strategies that we've built up over 2 weeks that we can practice ourselves and also use with children, and then developed quite a few games, activities, resources, and models and images that can support all of that understanding. What we're going to be doing next week is moving on to 2 different areas. First of all, EYFS. At the moment, because obviously I've not recorded the videos yet, I don't know exactly how many days that's going to take. I'm presuming it will take at least 3 days of EYFS training. It may end up being more. But for the time being, I'm planning currently around about 3 days of training, which will take on board the following different elements. Arrangements of numbers. Really getting a fantastic way of arranging numbers so that children in early years are seeing small numbers in lots of different ways and are getting a very, very good sense of what small numbers are all about. Secondly, that's going to be done through resources and images. So the arrangements that we're going to be using, and lots of different images and resources and manipulatives that we can use in order to do that. Thirdly, that links us into mastery of numbers to 10. Rather than going all the way to 20 and beyond, really looking at small numbers and how to master them and really be able to talk about them and understand them. Fourthly, we're going to have some songs and games, as always, that are going to support all of these previous 3 elements. And I've put this one separately, even though it does fit into resources and images and arrangement and mastery of numbers to 10. I'm going to focus specifically on the use of tens frames. Possibly one of the sessions itself might just be how to use the 10 frame image and develop that with children in the early years, and also moving a little bit into year 1 and beyond. The second bit all depends on how much time is taken with early years, but I'm hoping to have at least a day, if not 2 days, at the end of next week looking at division in Key Stage 2. For that, we'll be looking at general understanding of division and what it means, but far more importantly, how to teach the standard, I suppose, bus stop method of division in Key Stage 2. I know that was promised for week 1, but it's taken so long to actually record and put these videos together. There hasn't actually been time so far to look at that, and I didn't want to just rush over it. I want to give the opportunity to really see how that works. So I'll be demonstrating using base 10 how to teach bus stop method with real understanding. As I've also mentioned over the course of the week, I've now put together a Dropbox folder with resources for the 2 weeks so far. Again, I was supposed to put that together at the start of this week, but as the 2 weeks have complemented each other, it's made more sense to put all the stuff together into one large folder. So basically, on the PowerPoint, you'll get the Dropbox link to that, so you'll be able to see that shortly. And also, I'm going to put that out on Twitter. So if you want to immediately link into it, I'm going to tweet out at the end of the day today, so that anyone who's been following me will be able to immediately access all those resources. So do check them out. You'll have everything from the previous 2 weeks put together. PowerPoint presentations, ICT resources, visuals, images, and anything else that will fit the learning of mental calculation. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you all for week 3 of the Ready Made Maths YouTube training videos.
And as you've just seen, this is the programme for next week. I won't go through it again, I'll just let you see that in your own time, with EYFS training for probably around about 3 days next week, and then a couple of days hopefully on Key Stage 2 on division. I hope you'll join us for those. There's going to be a lot of understanding being brought out there, and what I'd love is for, by the end of the week, for anyone that's watched those videos, to actually have a real understanding of how bus stop division actually works, rather than it just being a specific method or a strategy that we're taught. So that's next week's programme, and hopefully everybody will tune in and enjoy them. As promised, you'll now find a Dropbox folder containing all of the key resources from the 2 weeks that we've looked at so far. There may well be things that I've not included yet, and if there is anything that I've promised that isn't in there, please let me know and I'll drop it in straight away. What you'll currently find in there are the 10 PowerPoints, one for each day, which have got all the key information that I've been sharing with you over the past 10 days. There's a folder full of key mental arithmetic resources from various different places, including pro formas, including cross-year group sheets, and various other things that will be very useful both for teachers, teaching assistants, and subject leaders. Thirdly, there's a file full of number games with templates for the games and instructions on how to play them. Many of those are the games from today's sessions. Number 4, there are number resources and images, many which have been produced by Sense of Number that are available as free resources as part of this training. Number 5, ICT. I mentioned those today. We've looked at a couple of the Excel resources. I've included all of the Excel files and all of the National Numeracy Strategy ITPs. And finally, there is one PDF document with the wrapper code and number resources in. If you want to find the folder, then obviously the link is available there, but I will also be putting the link on Twitter, therefore you'll be able to click on that straight away. There we go. So I hope you enjoy those and you're able to make a lot of use out of all those resources. Thank you so much for joining me for week 2 of the Ready Made Maths video tutorials. I hope you'll all join me next week on Monday the 3rd of May for the early years and for the division training. I look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks very much and goodbye.